Let's take a look at how we can create a morphing effect inside of After Effects. So here I've got a comp set up and I've got a bunch of pink circles all arranged around the shot, and it doesn't matter whether they're shape layers or they could be images or they could be solids. This technique is going to work on all of them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add some animation to this. So I've got them positioned where I want them to be. So if I move over to 1 second on my timeline, I want to select all the layers. So I can go up to Edit, Select All, shortcut Command A. They're all selected. If I press P, because they're all selected, it will show me the position properties. If I click on the stopwatch for any one of them, it enables keyframing on the position for all of them. And I've dropped a keyframe there. If I roll that back to the beginning of my timeline, now I want them to all start in the center. So this is really easy. If I go up to Windows, down to Align, and I'm going to align them all on the vertical and the horizontal axes. And now they all start in the center and then they move out. Now I probably want to have a bit of easy easing on this last keyframe. So I'll click, drag down to select the last keyframe of each of those layers, right mouse button click, easy ease, and see how that's looking. I'm going to slow it down a little bit so with them all selected I can just drag that out a bit more. And I think I'll have easy easing on the first frames as well. F9 is the shortcut for that. Okay, so that's not really morphing, that's what we want to do next. So I'm going to close these layers down, I'm going to make myself a new layer. I'm going to go Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And on the adjustment layer, I'm going to combine some effects to create this morph. So maybe I'll go midway through my animation here. The first effect I'm going to apply is a blur. I'm going to apply the Gaussian blur. So if I type in GAU, there it is. Use the top one. Apply that to your adjustment layer and then whack the blurriness up. I'm going to bring it up pretty high. I'm going to bring it up to about 100. Now, obviously, that looks like it's all blobby and blurred together. But it also looks out of focus. So what we need to do next is sharpen up the edge. And I'm going to do that by going over to my levels effect. If I apply the levels after the blur, I can increase contrast, black and white levels. But what I actually want to do is I want to change the alpha. And if instead of changing the levels on the RGB, I'm going to choose alpha. And I can increase the contrast of the alpha. Now the alpha channel is shown up here as black and white. It's blurred like the images. But if I increase the contrast here of the alpha channel, the edge is going to get nice and sharp. Okay, if I put that back to RGB, you'll see the result of that. So now you can see I'm having a blurred blob. I've got a very sharp blob. Now, if you go really close on these input black and input white points, you will see you get some pixelated edges. You can fix that if you want to bring them really close together. I won't bring them too close together, but I'll show you how to fix that if you do have that. If you have, so they're pixelated edge, you can go and add an effect like a matte choker or maybe even the simple choker. So if I type in choke, I've got matte choker or simple choker. I'll use the simple choker because it will be quicker. Pop that on there and I can choke the edge, and that just can suck in the edge or expand the edge, and that's going to help with the stepping. So now if I play that back, I can see that's going to morph out. Of a blob. What's really nice about this technique is I've got 3 effects on there running it, and I can go and change any of them at any time. So I could increase the blurriness, that's going to make it more blobby or less blobby. Make it a bit more blobby. I can go and grab one of these shapes. So if I select this one, for example, I can move it around. You can see real time it's doing that effect on there. So that's blobbing and morphing the shapes as it is. And of course you can add more effects on here. You can add lighting effects and things like bevel and emboss. I'm just going to go and add maybe a vignette. So I type in VIG, grab a vignette. I'll put that also onto the adjustment layer and I'll increase the amount there just so it slightly gets darker as it goes towards the edges. And what I'd usually do is, rather than having generic layer names, I'd select that layer and I'll just call that Morph. And I could even go and change colors. And even if I added something like text, that's now text that's being morphed. If it's above the morph adjustment layer, it's not receiving any of the effect. If it's below the morph layer, it's being morphed in there as well. And that's how we can create really interesting morphing effects without any plugins at all in Adobe After Effects.